We just went through a great debate about gotcha questions. You remember the idea that the liberal mainstream media are so mean and so petty that what they try to do is to trap candidates, mostly Republican candidates, into answering questions they don't want to answer, whether it was Scott Walker being asked about evolution, or whether President Obama is a Christian, or whether it was Rand Paul or anybody else. The gotcha game is something that candidates love to denounce when journalists engage in it. So look at this for a gotcha question. Republican presidential candidates being asked whether they would personally attend a gay wedding. And who asked this question? What left-winger thought of this ingenious plot to trap these candidates? Well, it turns out it was Hugh Hewitt. Hugh Hewitt, the conservative radio host, in a series of interviews, raised this with some of the GOPers who were running for the White House. He tried it with Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz didn't answer directly. He kind of deflected the question, as good politicians are known to do. And Hewitt also raised the question with Rick Santorum, who won a bunch of primaries in the last campaign. And Santorum, who is a big favorite of social conservatives, said no, he would not attend a gay wedding. So he at least gave a straight answer. And then Jorge Ramos over at Fusion picked up the ball and ran with it. He had Marco Rubio, also obviously a Latino candidate, on one of his programs. He asked Marco Rubio the gay wedding question, and the senator from Florida said that yes, if it was somebody who was a friend of his or a loved one, he would attend the gay wedding. It didn't mean that he approved of it, but he gave the example of, I would also go to a second wedding of somebody, even though as a Catholic, I don't believe in divorce. So, fascinating the way in which the candidates were put on the spot and the way in which they responded. So why is this question being asked, whether it's Hugh Hewitt or Jorge Ramos, or whether it gets asked on any of the Sunday shows or any of the morning shows or any place else? Because it tells us something about the way in which the same-sex marriage debate has evolved. It was only 10 years ago that George W. Bush ran for re-election, in part on a platform favoring a constitutional amendment to ban same-sex marriage. It's now illegal in 37 states, and even these Republican candidates who are not in favor of it, who support traditional marriage, who believe that a marriage should be between a man and a woman, are not going hard on this question because they know that it's not a political winner, that even a growing proportion of Republicans support or at least accept same-sex marriage. Many others do not. Many people feel strongly about this. It's an emotional issue. For some, it's a religious issue. So after that uproar in Indiana over the law that Governor Mike Pence supported but later agreed to amend, there was the whole thing about, well, would you bake a cake or could you sell pizzas to a gay couple for a wedding? And so this was, I think, another way of twisting and asking that question to try to get these candidates off their talking points. And no matter what they answered, I think it tells us how far, again, the debate has moved, because they're not being asked, do you support same-sex marriage? We pretty much know what they will say. The Democrats all support it at this point. President Obama did not until 2012. The Republicans are all against it, but they're not against it to the point where they are bringing it up, where they're campaigning on it, where they're using it as a wedge issue. We're down to the level of would you go, would you sell the cookies, whatever. And that, I think, tells us that this is not really going to be a major issue in the 2016 presidential campaign. Lots of other things will be: immigration, terrorism, health care. But same-sex marriage, I think, and I respect the views of those who don't agree with it, but clearly the political and legal momentum is on the other side. Same-sex marriage is not going to be a major issue in this campaign, which is why it's now being brought up in these kind of more oblique ways.